Hey guys, and welcome back to the Dev Marketer channel. This is the channel where we help you build and grow your next great idea. Now I'm your host, J.A. Curtis, but you guys can call me Alex. And in this video, we're going to be continuing and kind of getting to the near end of our series on how to build a blog using the Laravel framework, okay? So this video, we're going to be focusing on adding WYSIWYG functionality. Now I know what exactly is WYSIWYG, you might wonder, because some of you guys, I know English isn't your first language. WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get. And WYSIWYG functionality is basically like if you were using a Word document, how you have the buttons for bold and italics and stuff like that, and you can change the format of the text so it looks like how it'll actually render later when you're using your application. So that's what we're going to be adding in this video. It's actually going to be a lot easier to implement than you might think. And I know this is a highly requested video, so we're going to definitely get right to it. This is wrapping up the series as well, so we only have basically this function left, and then we're going to be doing an image upload, and then finally the deployment, and we'll be done. The next series will be all about e-commerce and building an e-commerce platform, which I'm super excited about. It's going to go into some more intermediate and advanced functionality. We're going to have a lot more stuff we can do besides just CRUD functions. We're going to be working a lot more with JavaScript to make it a lot more feature rich as well. And it's going to be a fun series. So be sure to make sure you're subscribed for that when it comes out, because it's going to be some good, fun stuff. I'm really excited to do that, actually. Okay, so I'll see you guys in this video. We're going to be working on that WYSIWYG editor. All right, guys, so welcome back. It is time to get started on working with the WYSIWYG editor. Of course, we're not going to be rolling our own editor like from scratch. We're going to be using a pre-made plugin, and there's a lot of plugins to choose from. Some of the most popular is CK Editor, TinyMCE, and there's WYSIWYG HTML5 is another really popular one. There's a myriad of ones you can look at. Mercury is another one that comes to mind. Mercury is what's used in Rails a lot, Rails applications for some reason. So anyway, lots of things you can do. The one I'm going to be doing today is called TinyMCE. And before everyone gets upset, because some people, I know there were people that were looking for specific ones like CK Editor and a Markdown editor and stuff. Just know that they're all basically the same. So if we follow what I'm doing in this video, you can probably do it with the one that you wanted to do, because they all basically implement the exact same way. And the only difference is really going to be down with when you initialize or work with like the API inside of it. There's going to have slightly different features available there, and that's really the difference. But as far as like actually getting it on the page, saving it to the database, they're all going to function the exact same way. So if you don't want to be using TinyMCE and you had another one in mind, you can follow along this video still. It's still going to be valuable for you to learn how to implement the one you're looking at, because I promise you, they're all almost exactly the same. The difference comes in when you're working with like the API inside of it. So for example, let's see if we can find it here. Where's their documents? Where the heck are the documents on here? Support? Documentation. Okay. So basically the difference is going to become in when you're like setting up the configuration. So here you use CK Editor and you replace. So it's slightly different syntax. You have toolbar, you have UI color. See how these configuration options are a little different. Whereas TinyMCE, you're going to have, let's just do a getting, let's see. In TinyMCE, which we're going to go over this in a second, but you see it's just slightly different syntax. We use a .init, and then we use selector instead of replace, right? So there's toolbar and these functionalities are all going to be a little different, and that's where you've got documentation for each of them, so you can just follow the documentation for the one you're interested in. But outside of these specific items like you see here and how you would initialize them here and here, these are the only things that you would really do differently. Otherwise, everything else is going to be the same. All right. So I'm going to be using TinyMCE for this. I actually think It's the one I would use for most of my production applications is this one. I've had problems with WYSIWYG HTML5 in the past. It's not as feature rich and like well put together in my opinion, just my personal opinion. Mercury is fine. CK Editor is really, really well put together, but it's clunky, it's big, and it has a ton of features. So if you need all the bells and whistles, then that might be the one to go for. TinyMCE kind of is in the middle. It's very quick and minimalistic. It looks really, really nice. It's super easy to customize, but it won't have all the power that CK Editor has, okay? It's got a lot of it, but not all of it. So it just depends on your needs. I really like I really like this TinyMCE. All right, so here you can see we're on tinymce.com. I'll link all this in the description, but you can just go there if you'd like. And you can see here that it's a really lightweight download, which is why I like it. It gives you everything you need, but none of the clunky stuff that you don't need for most applications. Sometimes you need it, and it's got a lot of power, so we can still, we can bold everything here. I like that it's got this down here. This comes in by default. You can actually work with images inside of TinyMCE. You can flip it, rotate it. So it's got lots of cool stuff like that we can do. You can add links, which is, we're going to talk about adding this functionality where you can insert a link and you have all these options. You can do inside image upload, everything. It's pretty cool. All right, so this is the one we're going to be working with. Now, all these features don't come out of the box. It takes a little bit of extra configuration to get images set up. We're not going to be doing images in this one just because it is a little tricky. We've got usually you're going to deploy it to like an Amazon S3 or a Microsoft Azure or something like that, some other service, and you need to be doing, so there's some configuration needed for that. That's the only reason we're not doing it. But in the documentation, it's actually, if you just follow the documentation, I'm sure you guys could really easily figure it out. And we'll probably add that functionality when we go to the e-commerce page one. Okay, so anyway, this is what we're working with right now. And let's go ahead and get it started. It actually is really easy to get started. So what you can do is just scroll down here and you can see there's a quick install. And there's two ways to install it. So you could install this with Composer, or you can install it with the CDN. We're gonna just be doing the CDN because it's super easy. Composer is easy too, but you don't really need to install it via Composer unless you're gonna like retheme, change the theme or style of this, or get into some really advanced stuff with it where you actually need to have it locally on your server. That's really the only time you would want to use Composer. If you don't need any of that stuff, then you can just load it to the CDN. It's way easier. Okay, so what I did is I come down here and I grab this top script. All this does is load this TinyMCE JavaScript file from the internet, okay, from a CDN. Okay, I'm going to come back over to our project here, and we're going to look inside of our resources, views, and in posts. And this is the reason we're working in here is because this is where we want to have the editor set up. If you guys think about it, when are you going to be using the editor? Well, you're going to be using the editor when you're creating a new blog post and when you're editing an existing blog post, right? So we don't really need the editor outside of that. So these are the two pages we want it on. So under posts.create and post.edit, these are the two pages that we want the editor on. So let's start with the create page. Again, resources, views, post, create, and we need to load in this JavaScript file. Now, you could load it down here at the bottom with our other JavaScript files, but what I'm actually going to do is load it in at the top. It'll load asynchronously in the background, basically, in modern web browsers now, and this will get it converted over quicker from a normal text area into an actual editable, like we just saw. Okay, so let's go ahead. So we go ahead and we load it in this script. So now we have access to all the JavaScript and all the TinyMCE functionality. That's all it takes. That's why this is so easy. That's why I love it. You don't actually have to bring in CSS. You don't have to bring in any of that. You can just do this. Whereas CK Editor has a couple files you have to bring in. This is just one quick thing. Okay. Next, we actually want to implement and actually initialize our editor. So let's just open up some script tags up here at the top. And we're going to, real quick, I don't know if I mentioned, so I'm putting this in this style sheet section. And the reason I'm putting it in here is because we know where this goes in the HTML document. This section here will go into the, it goes into where we would normally, it's basically right at the bottom of the head, okay, of our HTML document. So this isn't in the body yet. This is the bottom of our head. for our HTML, this section here, and that's why I'm adding it here, okay? I'm loading the CSS first, and then at the tail end, I'm adding my JavaScript. If I had another CSS file to do, I would do it up here, okay? I just want to explain why I'm putting it up here, okay? Anyway, we bring in the CDN. Now we've got our script tags. Let's actually implement it. So to implement it, you can just call TinyMCE class or object, and then we'll do init. Open this up, and then we're going to pass in a variety of parameters here that basically give it the functionality that we're looking for. This is how we customize it. Now, the first one we need to do that is required in order to do is you have to tell it what selectors you want to basically convert into a TinyMCE. Now, the best idea is to do this on a text area, because that way when you actually submit the form, it's going to take the fancy styled the styled text, convert it to HTML tags, and then input that into the text area. So then when you submit it to the database, it's going to come in as actual raw HTML. Okay, and so that's why it's good to do it in a text area. So let's go ahead, and you could actually just put it in any text area by calling text area here. You need to do it in quotes. So what we're saying is, hey, any text editor on this page, initialize it for TinyMCE. We're going to go ahead and save that, and we're just going to check this out in the browser. So let's head on over to our project, localhost 8000. The server's probably down. Let's boot it up, PHP artisan serve, and we should be good to go. Okay, so now to find that page, we need to go over to our posts, create new post, and sure enough, you can see we already have the editor. So we have all the functionality that you would want. Well, not all of it necessarily, but we already have a lot of it. This is our first post with TinyMCE. And you can already like bold it. You can italicize stuff. It's pretty cool. We can add some the headings. We can do all sorts of stuff. Is all given to us by default. We even have the underline. So here we can say we will learn plugins, initialization, JavaScript, okay? And you can see that all of this is just rolled out of the box. With one line of code from the CDN, we have access to all of that, okay? Pretty cool stuff. So it's just awesome to me how easy that is. I can't believe it. Now, if you wanted to customize that, we're going to talk about customizing this right now, but you can customize the exact layout of all the buttons here. So if you didn't want them to change justification, you can get rid of those. If you don't want the redo and undo functionality, you can get rid of that. So all of this can be customized. I'm not going to go into every feature because this video would take way too long, but all of it's really well documented on their docs. So if you go to tinymce.com here, and you just go over to their docs at the top, you can it does a really good job at explaining it. You can just start with the getting started, and it goes over a lot of it, okay? So like, for example, we'll talk about some of these right now. So you can add plugins, and you can also configure the toolbars and the menus, these are the two we're going to focus on right now. So let's start with plugins. So TinyMCE has the ability to add other functionality through plugins. And this makes it really lightweight because it basically comes with the core functionality. What we see right here is the core functionality, where you have bold and italics, and then basic justification, some lists and indentation. And that's basically the defaults. That's what you get. Those are the basics. That comes with all of them without needing to add anything, okay? And that keeps it really lightweight and small and easy on the server. However, sometimes you need custom functionality. You might need to add the ability for them to insert links or to render stuff from code or something like that. And so we can add all that functionality on a as needed basis, basically. So if you come over to TinyMCE again, let's go back to their docs, and let's find their plugins. Here it is, add plugins to TinyMCE. And you can see there's a whole bunch of plugins, and we're not going to go over all of them. But you can see they've got spell checkers, they've got tab focuses, they've got word counts you can add, the ability to print directly from it, just lots of stuff like that. And you can, emoticons, that's cool, I didn't know they had that actually. So anyway, they've got lots of cool stuff here that you can play with. Now the one we're going to work on is the link, okay? And this adds the ability to add a hypertext link to the document, which we don't currently have right now. And it's actually really easy to implement. You just add this plugins and then tell it the name of the plugin, which is link. So let's roll back to our Sublime here. And we're going to add a new parameter down here. We're going to do a comma. Make sure you get that comma in there. And we're going to do plugins. And we're going to just call it link. Save that and then roll back over to our blog and refresh. And you can see that we now have this link over here that allows us to insert a link. So go visit my website. And you can actually copy something like website, click the link. It pulls it up. And you can say devmarketer.io. And you can add a title attribute. And you can tell it if it's in a new window or if it's in the same window. There we go. And now we have a link on our website. So it's pretty cool what you can do. It's as simple as adding that plugin functionality. Another popular one is code. And the code just allows you to, if you already had HTML, you could basically input it in here. So like I'll show you real quick. We'll do plugins code. So let's go back over to Sublime. And what we're going to do is we're going to add both of them. So we'll do link and code. Let's save that. Come back over here and refresh. We still have our link functionality, but you can see now we have this tools and source code. And from here, what we can do is we can actually add source code if we wanted to have this functionality for users. And they could copy and paste source code in. And just how it works. We actually put raw HTML in here. We click OK, and now you can see it renders it exactly. So this is bolded. This is H1, just the way you would want it. So that's another way to add some functionality in there. So anyway, you can basically take a look at these plugins, figure out what you need, and then there's an import CSS document. There's all sorts of stuff on here. So figure out what you need, add those plugins in. It's really easy to add them. You basically just come under plugins, add a space between each one, and just list all the plugins that you want, okay? Pretty cool to customize it that way. And this is also how you add that image functionality if you want to do images. There are some image ones down here. Image allows you to actually put the images in there. You select the image or drag and drop it on your computer, and then it uses Ajax in the background to upload that to a server somewhere, like an Amazon S3 server or a Microsoft Azure, or something, a CloudFront server or something like that. And then image tools is another one that kind of gives you extra ability to like resize, rotate, and flip, and all that stuff we saw as well. So if you want both of those, you just bring them both in. If you just want the ability to upload it, you just add that one. You can customize what your plugin or what everything has with these plugins. And that way you're not loading, like for example, CK Editor loads basically all this stuff by default. So that's why it's such a heavy bloated file. But this one, you basically pick and choose what you need, so you're only loading what you need and not all the extra stuff that you're not using. Okay? All right, so that's basically that there. Let's, the last thing I'm going to show you is how to customize the toolbar, and then we're going to actually talk about saving it to the database, and we'll be done. So the next thing is customizing the toolbar. Let's go back over to getting started, and we're going to talk about, let's see, I think it's still under basic setup. So with the toolbar, it's actually really easy to work with. You have two items here. You actually have your menu bar, which is this up here. And then we have the toolbar, which are these options down here. So first things first, we can actually disable the menu bar. If you don't want these up here, so a lot of people don't like those. They like to go more minimalistic. What you can do is you can just pass in another option here. And we use menu bar and just pass in false. All right, now if you pass in false on that menu bar, what's going to happen is it's just going to get rid of that top bar. So now we just have these options. This is actually kind of the way I like it personally. So you can customize it that way. All right, now you can also customize what's in the menu if you wanted. So for example, if you only wanted like cut, copy, and paste, and you didn't want anything else, you can actually just use the menu option, and then you'll pass in an item called view, and set view equal to, and then you give it the title. So for example, under the edit menu, we would say, give it the items, cut, copy, paste. Okay, this gives you the option to do cut, copy, and paste, but nothing else. So if we come over here, we have edit, cut, copy, and paste. All right, pretty basic. So you can add, I'm not going to go through that because I really don't like the menu, but I just want to show you guys what you can customize there with the menu. So for me, I'm going to do menu bar false, and it's just not going to have a menu bar. There we go. So we just get this stuff right here, which is kind of cool. I like it. And this is actually probably the way to, this is basically the functionality I'm going to keep, but I'll show you real quick how to add to control the toolbar. So once again, if you want to completely disable the toolbar, you can actually do toolbar false, like right here. So we could just completely get rid of the toolbar. I'm not sure what this will look like without no toolbar or menu. Let's take a look. It would just give you the shortcut menus. So yeah, I guess you don't have anything. This is a blog post. And then you could still like copy this and do Control B to bold it and italicize. So you have those options as well. However, you can also customize the items that are inside the toolbar by just doing passing in a string with all the items that you want. So you can do, and then these vertical bars give it the, well, let me show you. So this is where you do undo, redo, and then we'll do cut, copy, and paste. We'll just do those ones. Okay, because maybe we just want absolute basics. We're going to save, and now we're going to get the undo button, the redo button, a vertical bar, and then the cut, copy, and paste. Okay. Oh, I forgot to put this. This needs to be a string. Okay. There we go. Pass that in now. Now you get the undo, the redo, that little vertical bar, cut, copy, and paste. All right, so you can customize this however you want. So I'm going to get rid of all that. I just liked it the way it was, just like this. And now we have our editor. So now what we need to do is we can actually just save it into the database. The database should be working just the way it is right now. You actually don't need to really customize it. What's happening behind the scenes is after we create our fancy markup, it's actually converting it into HTML. It's adding HTML tags. TinyMCE automatically, it doesn't really sanitize it, but it does remove like script tags or anything malicious. That's already rolled in by default with TinyMCE. So we can basically just submit it to the database. The biggest difference is going to be that now it's going to have HTML in the item. So when we actually display it to users, we need to do some work to edit that so it doesn't actually show the HTML tags. But otherwise, saving it to the database is actually really easy. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. There's one thing that we need to do, which is if I try it right now, you're going to see that I'm going to get an error, and that's because of our parsley. Okay, if you guys remember a long time ago, we added this this functionality. In fact, let me not get rid of this real quick, and I'll show you. I click Create Post, and we added the functionality for validation. So this turned green because it's accurate, but it says this value is required. And now it changes. This was partially, if you guys remember that. And so the problem here is you can see that down here it thinks the value is required because the way that TinyMCE works, and I'm not sure how the other ones work, but I think they all work basically the same way. The way that TinyMCE works is when you submit the form, that's when it actually tries to convert it. But what's happening with Partially is checking to see if the text editor is filled before it actually submits the form. Okay, so it checks to see if it's filled. It's not, and that's what breaks the submit. And then normally what would happen is after that process, but before the submit, is when TinyMCE would convert it and put it into the field. Okay. So anyway, that's how this works. We need to get rid of this. It says the value is required, so we just need to get rid of that validation because the validation, there really isn't any validation needed at this point. Okay. So we'll come over here and scroll on down to our text area, which is down here, and we can just get rid of this required functionality, and that will get rid of that the problem that we've got. Okay, so get rid of that, save it, and now if we refresh, we shouldn't have this problem. So let's go ahead and make a post, new post, new post. We'll give it a tag, and then we're gonna say welcome. Okay, so I went ahead and did this. We're just gonna, let's add some more styles here just to style it up like that. That's good. Okay, now what we can do is we can actually go ahead, we'll click Create Post. You can see it successfully created the post, But now we're running into the next problem, which is we've got H3. We've got, you can see that what's actually put into the database is this H1 tag. It created a paragraph tag here. We've got emphasis tags here, a strong tag, and so forth. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is talk about how to make this work when we actually display it to the user. Right now, if we go back to our home page, you can see we're going to have the same problem here. It has all these tags. If we read more, you can see it has all of that as well. So we actually need to show this